Hello, everyone, and welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Emil Sanamyan, editor of the Focus on Karabakh News and Analysis site at the University of Southern California's Institute of Armenian Studies. In 2019, Emil was looking into U.S. security assistance to Azerbaijan and noticed an unusually high number. His investigation received a lot of attention in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia, and eventually led to an inquiry by the members of Congress in a letter to Pentagon asking about the aid. Now, half a year later, it's also resulted in a letter to the Government Accountability Office asking for a review. Emil joins us remotely now from Washington, D.C. Hi, Emil.
Hi, greetings, everybody.
Okay, let's divide this topic into two parts: the legal restrictions that led to your raising the alarm and the size of the funds involved. And let's start with the money. In 2016 and 2017, Azerbaijan received roughly $3 million in U.S. security assistance, and in 2018, Armenia's number was $4.2 million. In contrast, in 2018, Azerbaijan was due to receive $58 million and another $43 million in 2019. So a total of $100 million over 2 years. This is a stark difference from the $3 to $4 million that was received in the previous years by both countries. What was the explanation for this, Emil, and what are the implications for Armenia?
Well, there's never really an explanation for the policy. There was a clear political rationale that was being deployed, and as far as I could tell, this particular policy was championed by John Bolton, who was a national security advisor at the time and recently is in the news thanks to his book. His idea was to increase pressure on the Iranian government in the country of Iran, and as part of that pressure, we had a tour of Armenia and Azerbaijan. He made some statements. He actually received the foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan while they were here in Washington. And the notion was that by offering this aid to Azerbaijani government, they would make them more cooperative as far as putting pressure on Iran, curtailing maybe some trade links with Iran, possibly adding some new facets to security cooperation with regard to Iran. It really has not materialized. Of course, the reason Azerbaijani government is interested in this cooperation has primarily has to do with Armenia. They want to constantly finding ways to put pressure on Armenia, and by kind of undercutting Armenia in this way by engaging the United States is another form of pressure. And just on the financial side of things, $100 million over a couple of years is not a small amount of money for the Azerbaijani government, particularly in the last few years. And they were able to ratchet up their spending on the border guards because most of this assistance was for the border guards directorate. The way U.S. government has tried to actually obviate the restrictions that are in Section 907 is that they always try to kind of present this assistance that has to do with border security, doesn't have to do with military directly, is not threatening to Armenia because it's about Iran or maritime policies. But we know from the past that even the assistance that had gone to the main sort of counterterrorism unit of Azerbaijani Navy, so it's based on Caspian Sea, has had impact on the fighting in Karabakh, and the unit of that Azerbaijani Navy participated in the fighting with Armenian forces in 2016. We know that because some of their members were killed, and there were funeral photos of that. So even on the maritime side of things, and of course in the last year and a half, Border Guard has had direct role on the border with Armenia, where in the past the border guards were deployed with Iranian borders with Iran, Russia, Georgia. Now they're also based opposite the Armenian border around Ijevan and Noyenberyan. And those forces had engaged in direct combat with the Armenian forces. So it's very hard for the U.S. government now to make that justification, saying that they're giving this aid to border guards. It has to do with the Armenia or Armenian forces. It does. That has direct implications. And when I was looking at that data, which I frequently do, I've been looking at different assistance programs that the U.S. government has had in the Caucasus and elsewhere many years. The impression is that the point of this was not really thought through very well, because we've had U.S. government has had a Caspian Guard program over many years. It really has not helped either to sort of cement a U.S.-Azerbaijani relationship or to kind of to reform the security forces there. And there were other assistance programs. So it seemed like it was a kind of a very tactical move by the administration, and that that should be reevaluated. And of course, wrote an article about it and had a pretty good interest around that region and elsewhere.
Emil, let's go into this legal point a little deeper. As U.S. assistance for Azerbaijan's border security increased last year, so did the budget for Azerbaijan's border guard service. Now, you reminded us that U.S. law known as Section 907 of the Freedom Act prohibits U.S. assistance to Azerbaijan unless it, quote, is important to Azerbaijan's border security and will not undermine or hamper ongoing efforts to negotiate a peaceful settlement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, or be used for offensive purposes against Armenia. Now, as you mentioned, we do know that the border guards do engage in hostilities against Armenia. Why do you think the U.S. government overlooks this?
Well, we've had so many cases of overlooking all kinds of different policies, particularly under this administration. We just, John Bolton himself is detailing that in his book right now. All of this little and not so little abuses committed by the president, committed by other members of the administration. So it's, I think at this point, you can almost explain anything, as a result of disarray in this current government. However, if we look back before this administration, back at George W. Bush administration, for example, back in 2001, when Section 907 was waived, there was a long time lobbying effort to lift restrictions on U.S. assistance to Azerbaijan, and that lobby, primarily made up of some of the, former government officials or, moonlighted security contractors or foreign lobby advisors, etc. They were there to seize the opportunity that September 11 provided them with, and they basically were able to steamroll that waiver through Congress. And the language you cited was built in there to at least have some kind of leverage on the way the assistance is spent in Azerbaijan. And since then, however, since 2001, 2002 fiscal year, we have not really had a successful review policy built in. So we like to say that we have an Armenian lobby in Washington, and we have the Armenian caucus, and all these other entities that are concerned about things about Armenia. But I have not seen a hearing, for example, called in the House of Representatives or in the Senate to consider how the waiver has been implemented to date, whether it's been effective or not. That's not happened in almost 20 years.
Right. So 2 months after you published those numbers, U.S. Congressman Adam Schiff, Frank Pallone, and Congresswoman Jackie Spears sent a letter to Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense demanding a detailed report on aid allocated so far. And they mentioned the U.S. law that prohibits aid to Azerbaijan from being used for offensive purposes against Armenia. What do you think will come out of this? Do you think this will lead to any of those types of hearings that you just mentioned?
Well, I would hope it would. I'm not sure if it would. I have not seen the Armenian American organizations call for a hearing or something like that about this particular issue. Or even more, I thought was egregious. At the time of 2016 war, we have documented cases of war crimes committed against Armenian civilians and bodies of Armenian military personnel. Heads being severed and not returned. They're still not returned. And that also falls under certain U.S. legislation known as the Leahy Law, not basically prohibits U.S. government from assisting not just governments, but any entities involved in that kind of human rights conduct or anti-human rights conduct. So I have not heard sort of a push towards hearings, but there is at least interest by members of Congress to raise this issue with the administration. And I know that the response from the administration has been basically, hey, we're doing, we don't have any concerns about this, but no detailed response that I have seen. And I think with Bolton actually absent from the administration now, there's not really a champion for this particular program. So I'm not sure if this particular year, if it's even going to continue in the upcoming fiscal year 2021. But experts in Armenian American organizations might have a better idea. What I have to say about the Armenian American organizations, though, is that for a long time, this issue has been ignored. This sort of security assistance programs to Azerbaijan. The approach was to have military aid parity as far as Armenia and Azerbaijan, which I think is questionable to begin with, but it was never a serious, there was never a serious basis to argue that there was parity in U.S. assistance to Armenia and Azerbaijan, considering all this assistance that went under other rubrics, be that the border guard rubric or some other counterterrorism rubric, etc., just ended up being assistance to military units or security units of Azerbaijan that engage in combat with Armenians.
Mm-hmm. Emil, is it fair to say that this process where a research institute publishes the work of a researcher and then the advocacy groups use this information to do their work, that this process is new to the Armenian ecosystem, although it's a regular feature of how Washington functions?
Armenian world is small, so yeah, we don't have that many think tanks to begin with. And personally, I worked in the Armenian Assembly for several years in the early 2000s, and that was essentially my role there at the time as a research officer. So I would, look for this kind of material to present it to the policymakers. But it's great that we have this opportunity now to have a think tank that focuses on contemporary Armenian issues, focuses on contemporary Armenian problems. And of course, we will continue to generate research, and it will be up to all the other stakeholders or people concerned with this to take it up or not take it up.
Great. Thanks very much, Emil.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for watching.